Welcome to The Growth Equation. This isn't your typical business podcast. We're keeping it real about the challenges of scaling up, period. I'm Tristan Wright and I've been there. I've built and scaled my own business. I've sold it. I've learned a ton along the way. Now I'm bringing you the no BS stories of founders who are in the trenches right now, navigating that messy middle. We're talking advertising, marketing, design, creative, branding, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or running a team of 100. Everyone's got a secret sauce, that thing that makes them different, better. We're going to uncover it. So grab a coffee and let's get real. Today we're talking to Dan from Elite Brands. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Tristan.
My pleasure, mate. So I was doing a bit of research earlier. Homicide detective. We don't normally see former homicide detectives in we'll call it the marketing space.
No, absolutely not. And I do like to tell the story for a couple of reasons that was my past career. The first is a lot of what we do online can seem pretty daunting to someone who doesn't work in that industry. So I always want to tell people and sort of make them feel comfortable with the fact that it's all right if you don't know a lot about this, because I actually came from a very different background, from a marketing background, an IT background. I came from a policing background. I was a detective, and it's vastly different. So it breaks down a lot of barriers when I tell people that. It's not a brag or anything along those lines, but it's like, hey, do you know that, I was once in your position and you can actually do this, and you don't need to have got a university degree in marketing or worked in the industry or be an amazing whiz with software or coding or whatever it might be. The principles that we rely on, anyone can learn, because I managed to teach myself how to do it.
Yeah. So how long were you a detective, or how long were you in that space before you moved across to running your own business? And was it just one day you woke up and said, I'm sick of chasing all the crooks? Or what was the story?
No, it's a bit of a long story. So I went to the police academy when I was 19, and I went pretty much straight out of high school. I never went to university, never got a degree, never did a trade. I had no other real life experience. So my lived experience was being in the police. And I was in there for 17 years. And for between 10 or 11 years of that, I was a detective. So you start off in uniform and you work your way through and you get qualified to be a detective, eventually ending up as a homicide detective. And it wears you down. It wears you down. There's not too many good days at work when you're in that space. And, you're often dealing with the worst people in our society, or you're dealing with good people, but you're talking to them about probably the worst thing that's ever going to happen to them in their life, or that they've experienced or witnessed. So there was never this amazing day at work. And being stubborn and proud, even when I started to realize that I was struggling a little bit with that role, I didn't ask for help. And that's a cultural thing within the police. You don't necessarily put your hand up and say, I'm struggling, I need help, because as soon as that happens, they usually they ground you. Basically, you're down to your desk until you're better, because they don't want any risk of you being out on the road. So you tend to sort of hide it, push it away, and eventually just got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. And the doctor said, hey, Dan, you actually can't do it anymore. So for me, that was a big struggle. I got medically retired and I was only 36. A beautiful wife, 3 kids, everything that comes along with being, a dad, a mortgage, all the pressures, everything that goes along with it. And then all of a sudden, this secure job that I had that I was really good at was taken away. And the decision wasn't mine. It was, you've got to go. You can't do this anymore. So faced with that situation and obviously struggling with some mental health problems, I didn't really know what to do. So I did kind of hide away for a little bit. And well, I've got to do something. And a friend of mine had been through a similar journey, and he'd left the police and he got involved in digital marketing. And I reached out to him and I said, look, can you help me a little bit and sort of teach me what it is you're doing? It was all a bit of a mystery, sort of like voodoo. Like, I know things are going on, but I don't know how they're happening. And what I quickly discovered when he was showing me these things is that I was really good at it. And it wasn't until some years later that I was talking on stage about this journey, and someone said to me, well, you were probably very good at talking to people when you're a detective. And I was like, well, yeah, I was. That was my strength. And these people had no incentive to do what I asked, or to answer questions when I spoke to them, or even make it easy for me to find them, because the only outcome usually for them at that level of crime was jail. But I still had this ability to get people to talk to me, no matter what the circumstance, relate to them, and get them to do what I wanted to do and make them think it was their idea. And the guy said to me, he goes, that's just marketing. And I'm like, you know what, it actually is. And when it was reframed like that, I was like, I'm really good at marketing, because I would find people that didn't found. There was no incentive for them to talk to me. They had no reason to. In fact, by law, they didn't even have to talk to me if they didn't want to. And the only outcome for them, usually, if they talked to me and they admitted to a crime, was that they were going to jail. And all of a sudden, here it is. I've got people online who aren't hiding from me. In fact, they tell me everything about their life on all the socials. All that information is available to me. When I do find them, they're usually happy that I found them, because I'm putting a product or service in front of them that they're actually interested in, or it solves a problem for them. It's a win-win. It's easy to find them, and they're happy when you find them. So it's a lot more rewarding. But just as a broad overview, that's effectively what my strength was as a detective. I wasn't the big intimidating guy. I didn't rely on presence to stand over people and get what I wanted out of them. I was the bloke they'd talk to.
Yeah. And the way you've just described it, it's what you do for your lead gen. It sounds like it's basically account-based marketing. You've got a solution, and you're looking for, you do the research online, being your detective, and find people that can benefit from your solution.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I do. And the other thing is, you make a lot of connections. And what we're doing today is I'm making a connection. So out in the community, I would make a lot of connections as well as a police officer, especially as a detective. I would talk to a lot of people. I would have a lot of people that I was friendly with, that I'd interact with, whether they were good people, bad people, otherwise. I would just be the person that they could talk to. And you would get a lot of information out of those people, and you'd be introduced to other people as well that way. And I do the same thing online. So yes, I have a solution for people when they've got a problem within their business, but I also like to make a lot of connections and have a lot of networks, so that we could have this conversation, and our conversation could trigger you to go, hey, I want to introduce you to such and such, because I think you'd be a really good fit, like a really good matchup. He needs help with this, or anyone that's possibly listening to it of your dedicated audience that you've built, like, it could be something that they're interested in as well. Conversely, me talking to you, I might be sitting here thinking, you know what, Tristan could really help my mate, or this other client that I've got who's struggling with this, and this is how the online world works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all about connections, and
absolutely
not necessarily selling, but helping people working out what their, we'll call it an issue is, and showing an interest and seeing if you can help them with it.
Yeah, I had that the other day come through. I've got a client that we're looking at working with, and they needed some help with cold emailing, business to business cold emailing. And they're like, can you help with that? And I'm like, absolutely not. I don't do that. I'm not even going to pretend that I do that. But I do have someone that I use that I can introduce you to. There's no benefit to me to do that intro other than goodwill. And if you do those things without an expectation of anything in return, it always comes full circle, because the guy that I've helped with his cold emailing will go, well, next time I've got a friend who needs help with, meta advertising or email marketing or Google ads, I'm going to refer them to Dan because he helped me. Same as the guy that I introduced that does the cold emailing service. The next time he has someone, he might do the same. There's no expectation that's going to happen, but if we all help each other, then it's human nature that we're going to reciprocate that.
Exactly. It's a long game, but it's a
very long game. Yeah.
So you left the force, and you spent a bit of time not knowing what to do, mental health issues. I had similar sort of thing when I left my previous business, and that's how I got into what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
So you got into the business. How many years ago was that you set up as a freelancer?
It would have been 2015. So
Okay.
going on to 10 years now.
Yep. And today you've gone from being a freelancer, and now you're up at 14 staff. So
Yeah, well, I actually started as a brand owner initially.
ooh, okay. I want to hear this story.
Okay. So what I was doing is to sort of help with my mental health, I would do a lot of fitness. I like staying fit. I've always liked to stay active, going to the gym, playing touch football, running, all those sorts of things. And I just started blogging about that journey and about what I was doing. And with my friends' help, I was starting to market it. And then one of my fans reached out to me, or one of my followers reached out to me and said, have you ever thought about trying to monetize your website? Because it was getting quite a lot of traffic. And I said, well, I never really have. I just sort of do it as a hobby because it makes me feel good. And he introduced me to a company called Teespring, which is now called Spring, I think. But it was the first print-on-demand T-shirt, hoodie, sweatshirt model that was out there. So I started doing that, and he was my first business coach, and he trained me on how to do Facebook ads. That's where I really had an app. Facebook ads really made sense to me. I found it very easy. I actually couldn't believe there was such a wealth of information on how to find people and target them correctly. So I did really well with that, to the point that I got picked up by that brand as a brand ambassador, and they'd fly me around to train people or deliver at seminars about what I was actually doing, which was amazing. Very, very different world. From there, I got contacted by a company and said, hey, we know you're doing really well selling T-shirts and hoodies. Have you thought about starting your own brand? And we've got this new product where we do print-on-demand leggings. And I was like, no, but I'll give it a go. So I launched a website. It's called gearbunch.com. We launched it in 2016. It's still around to this day. And we just blew up. We turned over about 5 million in the first year. Really out of nowhere. And that's where I had this really steep learning curve. So I went from being, this freelance online marketer to running my own brand of business. And you're probably Googling it right now, but you'll see it's some wicked, crazy, weird leggings. But it's basically the way that I would operate selling T-shirts and things like that was I would get designs created that you couldn't walk into a store and buy. So we did the same thing with leggings, and it's not mainstream. There's probably 0.1% of women in the world that would be interested in it. And the reality is that those people do want to wear something that represents their hobbies, their interests, their passions, and that's what we created. And it was actually, as I grew, I started engaging agencies. And what I found is that the typical agency model really frustrated me, is that we'd be doing something without any level of expertise. Let's say our email marketing, we'd be running it, and then we'd bring on an agency with all the promises in the world that we're going to do this and we can fix this and we can increase that. And we're like, great, let's go. They'd come to you a month or two later and performance was worse. And they would still put their hand out and say, well, we want to be paid as well. Or they'd be running ads for us and the ads would be running at a negative. We'd be losing money on the ads, and they would still put their hand out at the end, and they were really hard to get in contact with. They were terrible at communication. And what I found was most of them had taught themselves how to do these ads through YouTube videos or working for someone else, but they'd never experienced their own money being on the line or their own brand reputation being at risk. So I ended up bringing it all in-house for the brand. So we did our own email marketing, all our own Facebook ads, all our own Google ads, and all the support and everything that came along with it. During that time, because we were spending so much on Facebook ads, Meta picked me up as they put me on their business council in Australia, and then they picked me up as one of their global trainers. Started getting on stage and delivering for them, and then training other businesses, and then started getting on stage for other organizations, delivering, to other entrepreneurs. And I'd walk off stage and people were like, can you do it for us? And initially I said no, because I just hated the whole agency concept. I'm like, no, we just do it in-house, but we don't do it for anyone else. And then eventually I thought, well, I'm getting asked enough. I'm going to give it a try, but I'm going to do it differently. So it's going to be about communication first. If we don't perform, you don't pay. Because I hated people asking for money when they did a shit job. It'd be like a builder building something that's half falling over and then going, well, no, I still want to get paid. I don't know how to fix it, and I'm not going to fix it, but I still want to get paid. And it just didn't sit well. Now it's like, why is life different online to online? You know, if someone does a poor job, if a mechanic can't fix your car, they don't charge you for trying. They charge you when they fix it. And if they can't fix it, then you take it to someone else. I thought, what's the difference? So using my internal teams, we started running the agency. And thankfully I did, because when COVID hit, it was, whilst a lot of online businesses thrived, my business model didn't work for it, because we were print on demand, which means the product doesn't exist. They're all blanks until someone orders it, and then it gets printed with the design, gets cut and sewn to order and shipped out to the client, which is a good business model because you don't have to hold stock. But in America is where we produce. The government there said, you're not essential, we're shutting you down. So I had no way to do production. And that was, if that was my only source of income, then that would have been catastrophic. What I could do is, when that was happening, I paused all my ads, we paused all our emails, we let people know what was going on, but I had the agency growing in the background. And there was a lot of other online, typically offline businesses that had to come online, and that's where we could come in and help a lot. So that's where we really grew a lot. And then fortunately, once COVID was finished or the lockdowns ended, Gearbunch firing back up, away we went, and here we are today.
Awesome. So is Gearbunch almost set and forget for you now? Like, you've got all the systems in place that you just need to answer questions and inquiries?
To a point, it's also our testing ground. So it's like our sandpit. So any concept or strategy that we have, let's say we have a new meta ad strategy or a new lead generation strategy, new email marketing, whatever the strategy is, as a team, we'll think of it, we'll look at how to execute it, and we'll execute it internally on Gearbunch. Because if something breaks, it's only our problem. If something doesn't work, it's only our problem. If it's not successful, it's not successful for us. We then take the successful strategies that we've tested and have worked, and then we look at ones which current clients it would be appropriate to introduce those to. And it's a much easier proposition for a brand owner to look at and say, and we come to them with this idea about running, let's say, for example, lead generation quizzes that leverage social proof and generate more leads, and then we have flows and giveaways and runners up prizes, everything attached to it. If you can go to them and say, this is the results of what we did, and you can show them in the back end because it's your brand, then it's a much easier proposition to say to them, and we want to do it for you now. So they're more than happy to adopt it.
I imagine a lot of your clients end up being e-commerce. Like, that's your niche that you focus on.
E-commerce is our bread and butter. We do some lead generation for franchise-based businesses, because it's probably, I would say it's really underserviced and poorly done a lot of the time. But that's leveraging Google and meta ads and email marketing to get more businesses through their front door. Or to get more franchise opportunities through their front door. That's not the norm. Most of it is e-commerce that we are running for, because that's what we're good at.
Yep. So your model, if we think about it, is very different to most agency models. You test everything on your e-commerce platform.
Yep.
You find out what works, what doesn't work, and then a couple of months later, you deploy it on your clients' platforms.
Exactly. And like I said, if one of the main things that they teach you in the police is you become very risk adverse. So you're not as willing to take risks. Everything's always got to be measured and judged and planned, and all possible outcomes are thought of in theory. So when you can go and you can approach your own brand with this strategy, and more often than not, they work. We don't often think of ideas that are crazy. We're not looking for hacks or shortcuts. We're looking at ways to solidly build brands. We test it on ours, and then we go with that, only the winning formulas, to the other brands. They love it. And it just value adds to what we do for them. And it's not always, do you want to do this? It will cost this much extra. It's usually, let's say for argument's sake, we need to generate more leads for your business, for your email marketing, for this to take it to another level. This is a strategy. We either use quizzes or we use giveaways to get people in. And it's not your normal giveaways and it's not your normal quizzes. This is the way we do it. This is what we tested. This is what works. And they're normally like, when they look at the results, they're like, sure, let's go. And it just value adds to what we do. So it just becomes part of the email marketing strategy because it benefits the work that we're doing. If we improve the quality of leads coming in, then our systems work better. The other thing that it does allow us to do is it gives us a good holistic view of brands. So they might be running their Meta ads internally or their Google ads internally, and we're running their email as an example. We don't run all three for everyone all the time. But we can definitely help them with those components. And they know and trust us enough that the advice we're giving them about perhaps their Google ads or their Meta ads is based on experience. They know we do it. They're not asking us to do it. And we offer the advice to them or help them with some strategies because in turn, we see it as this holistic overview that, well, if your Meta ads are shit, more than likely it's going to affect the performance of other aspects of your business. If we can help you fix this, then what we're doing over here is going to be better again. And then it's those rising tides. And then if the client's happy and things are profitable and things are growing, well, it develops a really good relationship. And that's what we want is long-term relationships. I don't want to come in and, every month or two have to relearn a new brand, establish new relationships, new customers. If we can stick with people like we do, we've got customers that have been with us for years now, which is fantastic. So that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we develop these long-term relationships, and that is through helping people, even if it's outside of the scope of what we're engaged to do.
Now, I'd be really interested to hear about your charging model because it sounds like it's almost a pay on performance concept. So
it's an ethical model is what it is. It's a flat retainer. I don't charge on percentages of ad spend or percentages of revenue. I just find that is not where I want to be because there's so many factors that go into what makes a business successful. So we look at it from a time allocation model. So our retainers are 30 days. And like I said, people normally stick with us for years.
Yep.
And what we look at is we do audits of clients first. So let's say we'll use the email marketing example. I'll do an audit of their account. We'll look at it and say, well, how much time is this going to take? So internally in the agency, we track time. So we know based on the size of a client, how much time on average our team needs to spend on it. And our retainers are based on that. And even still, they're well below what some of the ridiculous retainers that people throw out there. But fundamentally, it's a time-based retainer. And the difference between running, a brand that has 1 million subscribers compared to 10,000 is vastly different. So the 10,000 subscriber model is not going to be charge a retainer the same as the million. The million one takes a lot more hours, a lot more time in the account, so that they have to be charged accordingly. But yeah, there's no scaling up or down in terms of those retainers unless we see exceptional growth for whatever reason that dictates more time needs to be spent. Then we'll come to them and say, hey, we're needing to dedicate more time. We're probably going to have to rediscuss the retainer. Usually by that stage, we've been working with someone for years, so it's so embedded in their business that it's an easy conversation to have. In terms of the pay on performance, if we get to an end of a month and let's say Meta ads, for example, Meta ads can be very fickle. Sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down. There can be inconsistencies in there. If we get to the end of the month and a client says, look, the performance has been woeful, and we're like, yeah, we know the performance has been woeful, and it's not a negligence on our part in terms of not doing what we should be doing or our system's not being set up correctly. It's just poor performance for that month. We'll say, hey, especially when we're new with them, so within that first 6 month period, if we have a really poor performing month, then we'll go to clients and say, hey, look, this month is no good. Can you give us the opportunity to continue to run it for the next month? There's no retainer, but we just want to get it to a point that it's profitable for you so that we can continue this relationship. And once we find that we have more time with them, they realize that we're really on their side and we're part of their team. And especially waiving a retainer for a month gets us through to usually a time when we are going from maybe break even to profitable, and then we just get this continued growth. And it develops really strong bonds with the brands that you're working with, because you really do put your money where your mouth is. Or like, if we get to the end of this month that you're not paying for and we still can't turn it around with our systems and strategies, then it's probably not going to work for a variety of reasons. It could be product, market fit. It could be the product, the quality of it. It could be they have terrible support service. And if we get to the end of that relationship and that month, and I say, look, you haven't even been charged, but we want to hand it back over to you because it's not working. And this hasn't happened yet, because the way that we do this always works. But we're quite prepared to walk away if we need to, if we don't think there's a good fit there.
Yep.
Conversely, we're also very selective about who we bring on. So we will we'll do audits first, similar to the way we did this conversation before the podcast. So we have a bit of a chat back and forth. We want to make sure that we're comfortable talking together. And I don't know if it happens to you, but I'm sure at some stage there will be someone you're like, I'm not doing a podcast with this person. This person is going to be very hard to listen to. They're very hard to talk to. There's no connection here. The same thing can happen with clients. Some clients are hard work. And if my gut tells me this client's going to be extremely hard work, then I'll say, look, here's the audit. The audit process involves back and forth and meeting and going through the audit and getting access to things. If we look at the brand, or if we deal with the brand owner or the brand representative and they're extremely difficult to deal with, then we just go, look, it's probably not going to be a good fit. This is probably something you could do internally, or here's a recommendation for someone else I think would be a better fit. And the reason for that is because we need a good relationship. If I'm going to, part of what we do is we have a meeting like this every week with our clients, 30-minute meeting, discuss past performance, plan what's coming up. If I have to sit through a meeting every week with someone who is extremely hard work or is rude to our team members or something like that, it's not going to foster a good working relationship.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
we do filter out a lot of the problematic potential clients, and also the brands that I don't think ethically sit well with us. There's some brands that I just don't think are a good fit for me to take products to market because I don't feel good about selling them. Without going into those, I mean, there's plenty of those out there, but I won't work with those guys either.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there has to be a fit, because if there's not a fit, it's not going to work. So
No, absolutely not.
I want to change tack for a second. You've built the business over a period of 10 years. You've gone from having just a brand to having a brand and an agency. You've had business coaches. You haven't had business coaches. What's the journey been like? Has it been smooth sailing? What sort of issues, what sort of fun times have you had?
Yeah, and look, so coming from a government organisation where, without doubt your pay is going into your bank account, the tax is taken out, and it's nice. You can predict your cash flow personally for years on end, really, if you want to. You're never worried about whether the business is going to have ups or downs. There's always a demand for you, because the world's always going to need police, because there's always going to be idiots in this world. You go to being a business owner and all of a sudden you're talking about cash flow projections and tax forecasting and BAS and workers insurance, so iCare insurance, and business registrations and minutes. And that has been the hardest part for me. I was involved in an organisation that had a hierarchy. The rank above you told you what to do and you just listened. And that hierarchy and that structure of that organisation have been around for over 100 years. So to then, you just integrate into that. But then to go and think, well, I now need to make this up myself. I'd never done that before. I'd never experienced being a small business owner. I never worked in a small business where I was a decision maker like that. Ultimately, any decisions were made higher up than I ever was in terms of rank. And monetary decisions weren't something that ever impacted on me. So that was probably the hardest thing. And that's where I needed the most coaching. Initially, my coaches were for how to do things online, strategies, systems, platforms, how to use the software. And then I moved through to, in the more recent years, organizational charts, KPIs, team huddles, organizational structure, tax, cash flow projections. Those are the things that I struggled with the most. They were foreign to me. And I would say that probably still to this day, the thing that I would always need the most help with. And it's funny because they're the things that I hate the most. And I think I hate them because I'm not good at them. This part I like. I love talking to people. I find this part very easy. The sitting down with the accountant, who is actually a friend of mine. I still feel like, and he's more than an accountant, he's a financial advisor for me as well. But I go to his office and I feel like I'm in the principal's office all the time. And I don't know why I feel like that. I always feel like I've done something wrong when I have to see my accountant. And it's a really stupid way to look at it. But, that's the reality of business. And that's probably that's the change in mindset I've had to have. So not be on the tools every day doing all the work on my own. There are other components to this business that I need to manage, I need to learn, I need to get better at.
Yeah, and having that mindset of continual growth and continual improvement, and knowing that you don't know everything and that you're not the best at everything.
And I think you need to have some level of understanding before you do outsource it or hire someone to do it for you.
Very much so.
If you've got no idea about how very basic, how's your invoicing work? How are you set up on a platform like Xero? How do those invoices get calculated? How do they get out? How do you reconcile them? How do you manage the balance sheet in there? How do you look at your profit and loss statements? I'm not saying that I can do it at a level of, a very good bookkeeper or an accountant, but what I'm saying is that I have an understanding of it so that when I open it up and they're explaining it to me, it's not foreign to me. So I think that you need to have a level of understanding of it. And we do the same with clients. They'll come to us and they might be a startup and they're like, well, we've never run meta ads before. I'm like, well, you're going to have to probably get involved with us a little bit here, because when we explain things to you, we're going to need you to have a certain level of understanding of what it is we're trying to explain to you. It's not just money in, money out. There's a lot of variables, a lot of levers that can get pulled. And I'd like to try and educate you a little bit along the way so that we can have strategic and tactical discussions that make sense. You're not going to ask for something that's not possible, nor am I going to come to you and suggest something that you just think is so out of the ordinary and you've never heard of it. So part of that relationship is always learning. And it's learning about the brands as well, about what makes them tick. So it's a good, fun journey to be on.
Totally. It's almost like the leadership concept where you don't ask people to do something that you haven't done or don't know how to do.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And a real world example of that is last year I coached my oldest son's football team most of his time. And I've always liked to stay fit. So I would never ask them to do something that I couldn't do myself. Now, and it got to a stage where I was coaching under 18s last year and I was 46, turning 47. And I would do the same work that I was asking them to do. I would join in with them. And it broke down a lot of barriers and for them and a lot of negativity that they might have had towards some of this hard work, because here's a 46 or 47-year-old man who's trying to beat you, and you're 17 or 18. You're meant to be in your physical prime, that you've got no excuses. It's not some dude that's never run in his life saying go and do this or go and do that, and you're just sitting there and you're really frustrated. And you're like, that's almost impossible, and I bet you could never do it. If you got someone standing next to you doing it, it makes a huge difference. And they would sometimes complain, and I'd say, we're going to do this today. And they'd be like, oh, and I'd be like, you know what? I'll do it with you. But if I beat any of you, we're going to do extras at the end. And they'd be like, okay. And that was like this real moment for them, like, we can't let the old man beat us, because, there's going to be penalties at the end of it. And if he's chasing us, then there's no reason that we can't do it, because he's putting himself through the same shit.
Yeah. And he's more than double our age, so there's no way that
that's exactly right. Yeah, there's no excuse. No excuse. So
I love it. I'm just at the time. We've been chatting for a while, so I've got a question for you. If you give one piece of advice to other business owners that you've learned from your journey, what's that one piece of advice you'd like to leave with people?
So, and this is a bit of advice that I got from from who is my best mate who helped me start this online journey, who I met through the police, and then the one I spoke about at the beginning of our chat, who introduced me to digital marketing. He would just help me with everything. He built a website for me. He showed me how to create a Facebook page, all these really basic things that I had no idea how to do. And this was just, there was so much of his time invested in me. And I would come and I'd stay over at his house and we'd spend 2 days just working on my stuff. And he had a life and he had a wife and kids and he had to do all these things and make a living himself. And in the end, I said to him, I can't keep coming and asking you these things. I couldn't justify taking up any more of his time to help me. And he said, I don't want your money. And he would just keep saying that. I want to help you. I want to help you. And then he gave me a book called The Go-Giver. It's this very short book. You can read it in a few hours in one day. And it's business lessons it's life lessons wrapped up in short business stories. And it's effectively the theory of karma, giving something to someone else or doing something for someone else without an expectation of anything in return. And that's what he was doing. And the irony is now, all these years later, I'm now bringing him on as a senior advisor for Google for us. So he's gone from teaching me, I've built this business, I'm now bringing him in. And this is this full circle. We've worked together off and on over the years, but we've never done anything really, solid full time together. And that's now, this is a reality. I only just got off a phone call with him just before this call. And that's the reality of what's happening. And anytime someone asks me about business advice, I'm like, just help people first. If you help them first, they'll remember it. Don't expect anything in return, and good things will happen to you. And it is the reality. It's like us doing this conversation here. Who knows what could come of it? Mm-hmm. You're not expecting anything from me other than a chat. I'm not expecting anything from you other than a chat. Who knows where this could take us?
Exactly. We help each other out. We have a conversation, and who knows what happens? Stay in touch, and something happens. Something comes.
Not everything's a hustle. Not everything is, some financial gain. All that stuff will work itself out. If you're good at what you're doing, you're a good person. It'll all work itself out.
Exactly. So yeah, I love it. Dan, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Look, just the website really, which is elitebrands.org. So elitebrands.org. On there, you can click on to learn more about us, or you can book a chat in with me. You can see what services we offer. There's no hard sell. There's no push to do anything. When I say that we do complimentary audits for people, we do. And people that have listened to this call, it's not always to see whether we can leverage a way to work with you. Sometimes it is a way to filter out the bad apples that we think are going to be problematic over time. Because at the end of the day, I had a career of having to deal with everyone. I had no choice with who I turned up and door I knocked on or who was in a car when I pulled it over. Now I can pick and choose and just work with people that are cool and easy to get along with and easy conversations, and it's not a chore. So why put myself in a situation that makes me uncomfortable or not happy? Because there's so many people in this world you can work with. Let's just pick the ones that you want to work with.
Perfect. Sounds good. Awesome, mate. Thank you very much for your time and have a good day.
Thank you so much for having me on today. It's been great.
Cheers. That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into The Growth Equation. If you've enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It helps us big time. Catch you next time. And if you want more, head over to evolvetogrow.com.au for show notes and exclusive content.